Can I just try to get a temperature check? So of all investors, would-be investors, potential investors in the room, who's already like on a cap table with GRIDX, just so I understand? You heard, I think we are 13 times. Anybody else? Yeah, one, okay. Well, to those investors here, I'll just say to Matías, thank you so much for what you do. We love what you do. We can't do what you do.
No.
Because you really do canvas all over Latin America to virtually every lab, and you and Fed for 10 years together, we've kind of worked together, and you find talent, and in many cases that talent is singularly exceptional. The person who is the best world expert in that thing, that they've been studying, and unearthing all that is enormous amount of work. And then you train people. I would say that the founders we've invested in, the one thing we know when we're looking at a GRIDX company is we know these people have been trained to be capital efficient and use money really carefully and sacrifice again and sacrifice again for the benefit of the company. And with that, in a good relationship, you can build great things. So I want to thank you.
Oh, well,
I didn't ask for questions yet. I'm sorry.
No, thanks a lot for that words. I think we've been doing.
Is this the microphone or is
no,
this the microphone?
No, but I think it's working. No, thanks a lot, and also for joining us for these intimate conversations. I think we are all friends here. But I want to start with some like framing this in this like 30 years history that you saw pass through. No, starting with the Silicon Valley and then IndieBio like creating this new category for like a non-traditional biotech, no?
Yeah.
That inspire us a lot and give us the possibility to see at the beginning that was possible to do something different from the traditional like biotech industry, and that was much more possible coming out from Latin America, but curing cancer, no? So, but there are people trying to do that note with that focus. What have you seen? The progress that you've seen in this last 10 years of this new like generation of entrepreneurs of science and technology coming out together, and what you're seeing for the future?
Yeah, I think the enormous quiver of experiments have been launched in the last 10 years. I think that the capital markets today are still I don't know, like that's probably like maybe like maybe not enough real clear success stories. A lot of things that developed, they got very highly valued, kind of gone sideways. Like it's hard, Dr. Peire couldn't, our fellow GP couldn't be here, but she's been doing this another decade before that, and she's always reminding our team just how actually hard it is to change the world. And so we've seen an explosion of creativity on behalf of the world's young scientists to apply biology as a technology into all manner of markets. You just never thought it could go there. I didn't think it would go into mining, or didn't think it would go into energy in ways that it has, and in areas where it's home to, and Argentina has been a huge part of, the history of this development in therapeutics and the CDMO world. Like we all get that, right? But it's that application into all these other world markets, maybe barely touching real estate, but every other sector of the economy has been touched, by how biology could grow. But at the same time, collectively, we can't be naive that it's all rah-rah again. It's not 2018, and people haven't read that McKinsey report wasn't written yesterday. That was 2018 that it said 60% of the world that's produced could be made with a biological process, and it would be more sustainable, be a new world. Like, our world is under threat right now, like in terms of it feeding its bloodstream, which is capital. And so being capital efficient is hugely important right now, And it means that the kind of people you put together to make teams are very well fit for this very, very tough world we're going into. You know, it was always hard. You know, doing B-Flow was hard, right? Doing everything was hard. It stayed hard. But it's even harder. It's even hard for all of them. It's not like they have it easy now, but even for the new companies, for the entrepreneurs just graduating now, you're graduating into a tougher time. People are wiser, smarter. They know every competitor in the world that you don't even know exists, you know? And so the most we can do is just keep people super educated about that global competition and really be relentless about finding actual product market fit and not just being, I'm pure bio. So a critical element where in our bio world, we emphasize bio because of its kind of purity, but we have to really be careful about that because sometimes the product market fit is in something that's a bio precursor, then has chemical steps from there, and so the overall thing is much more affordable than a pure bio approach. And we've done that. We've redirected a lot of our companies to have better economics, to not be pure bio lately.
Yeah, I like that. And I think what you mentioned, this kind of entrepreneurs, these kind of founders, I think it's one of the huge differences from the last 30 years in Silicon Valley, you know? So the motto in Silicon Valley for many years was fail fast.
Yeah.
And I think the motto for these founders, because they have a live projects related to these kind of companies, and mostly scientists that have been working with this for many years before they start a company, is don't die. No?
Right.
What do you think? And also,
it's like we used to be fail fast, right? Throw a bunch of money at it. Like to a VC, if it fails, like that's okay because they had multiple bets. And the nice thing is if it fails fast, you don't have to spend time on it anymore. You can focus on your winners. And in this market, especially when you have a researcher she spent 20 years of her career on something, failing fast doesn't sound so great, like 20 years, poof, right? So instead it's more about keep your burn extremely small, really get to your development to the point it can be, really get your titer, whatever it's going to be, to really stay extremely capital efficient till you actually can scale and actually have product market fit and actually really be integrated in and really understand your customers and know what you're going to do when you scale. And so that's more of a keep it low and slow and then inflect. And we have companies like that, where we have a lot of companies like that, where people, kind of maybe took their eye off of it for years, but we continued to work with them, and then they finally got it all solved, and it was ready to scale. And sometimes it takes, I don't know that that's like what investors want to hear, because that's a lot of time on their money, but when it's a small amount of money, cooking along for a long period of time, you're okay with it. Just when real bigger money goes in, you want to know you can scale now.
Totally, and I think this is not a romantic statement and a romantic approach. It's like a strategical, because what they're building is like real big entry barriers for each of the solutions they're bringing. So if at the end of the day, they finally bring these solutions to the table, economically viable, and with the open strategy, I totally agree with you that we not have to focus like in a conservative way, just thinking about biology, we have to think all the technologies. They're gonna finally have something that nobody else have in the market yet. So not that is not like a romantic statement, but also a strategic approach. No?
Yeah.
So you talk a little bit about Latin American founders, but I want to
let's make the white guy from Seattle talk about Latin American founders. Is that a trap? Is that a trick question?
Yeah.
Make some broad, stereotypical language around Latin American founders. No, I don't do that. But because I don't think of it that way. We just think of it as we source all over the world. That's not how we think about it. We don't think of building Latin American companies. I do think that people should be focused on one thing, which is this 57% of the world's capital every year, 350 to 400 billion is invested right here. We're like a tiny fraction of the world it lives, and do everything you can for whatever is going to be the best interest of your company. And don't shortcut it. Like, think about that one question. What is the single best thing for the future of our company, and try to do that? What can improve the odds? We do have an advantage in a number of our companies where we can have a lot of scientists in Argentina, and we can have a business office here, and we can use capital far more efficiently. But be very careful about thinking that applies to every company. It doesn't. And in some sectors where there's a lot of expertise, say in Argentina or Chile or Mexico, that you want to take advantage of because of that market, but it doesn't just apply to everybody. Yeah. What do you guys want to know? What's the questions on your guys' mind? Is it like, what does it take to raise capital today, or is it?
I have one.
Yeah.
What's the best advice someone gave you that changed the game?
Yeah, the best advice that people gave me was to not give me advice. Yeah, that was my parents. My parents weren't together, but they both had come from controlling families, and they decided to leave me alone. And yeah, kind of famously, like, I got bad advice once from my dad. Bill Gates spoke at our high school reunion, and he wanted to know who had tested highest in the Caltech transfer exam, which is a notoriously hard test. And it had been me, so he hired me to work at Microsoft. This was, he'd just come back from Albuquerque to form Microsoft in Redmond. And I ran to my dad, and I said, Dad, I got a job at Microsoft copying floppy disks for the summer. And he said, well, how much do you make at the restaurant? So when you think about the tips, you make more at the restaurant. And so I didn't go work at Microsoft in 1982. And that was the last time I ever listened to my dad. And, you know, so the truth is, I'm that kind of person. I wish I wasn't that kind of person. It's dangerous to be that kind of person. I recognize it, and I recognize it in some of our founders. You know, some of them, they'll listen to you. Doesn't mean they'll do what you say. And that probably goes sideways quite a bit. And it's true. I did 6 companies by the time I was 32, and only one of them exists today. Like, that's probably because I was that type of person. And it wasn't until later in life I really traveled the world, and I wrote books, and I really learned to listen to people and, you know, sleep on advice and live with it for a while rather than just try to intellectually process it right now. Because all of you founders, you're going to be given so much advice from so many different directions, tearing you in every possible direction. And you're like, one person says this and one says this. What do you do? Right? And that process of digesting that and like listening to how you feel and getting to a point where you can wake up in the morning and say, I know why I'm going this way and I'm comfortable with it. Even if it may not work out, I made the right decision now. Like, that's tricky. And so for me, like, you know, Arvin, I came into the podcast with Maya and Arvin. They offered me a key. They said, you know, and I said, I'll be there tomorrow. No one ever told me what to do at IndieBio, right? and it's like, that's what I needed. But like, to succeed as an entrepreneur, you really need to be able to absorb that good impact and figure that out. Like, in the investor-founder relationship is just as important as product market fit. And you've got to have a really tight trust. And investors have to feel like they honestly trust you in your soul as a human being. It's not just that you're their friend. It's capital, and capital runs on trust. So I would say, like, you know, the problem is you get so much crazy advice, and it is sorting through it and trying to figure out what's the right way to go, you know, and you have to do that with people that you trust.
Nice, like it.
Yeah.
Autonomous entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I didn't mean to get personal there on that stuff, like, but it's just an honest answer to your question. But it doesn't mean I am trying to say I'm not, like, if you're an entrepreneur like me, watch out. That's my advice.
Great. And the last one to close, we are gonna stay here in the space for the next 10 years, no, I
Yeah.
guess. And we are going to keep pushing to bring these companies and bring the impact because, as Sean said, we need to change the means of production of the world, and we need to bring these solutions. But what do you think that in the next 10 years, that is, I think it's going to be like exciting times and difficult times, we need to change ourselves to think faster, to think more agile, to think better on bringing these companies to the table?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And I mean, I think I want to best answer, like, how do you answer a question, or how do you answer that kind of a challenge? So, and you said it. So how do you, in a world that's going to change extremely rapidly in the next 10 years, between genetics, AI, climate, China, you name it, all adding up, and the single best way to handle that super rapid change is, one, to have a community. At a deeper level, it's to have a community of people around you. And it's really, you can't solve it yourself. So it's to have a tight team of super talented people constantly working on that with you. You know, we do this modeling of how's AI going to change the world, and then what is that world going to be like, and how can we invest in that, right? Like, you can't really do that alone. And I think that's like the functional answer to how you, it's not like I can't give you a trend, because the truth is we don't know.
Yeah.
But the point is, how do you solve it, and how do you be ready for it a little bit ahead? And a key thing is to have a very, very high, super high quality team around you. That's been my experience for virtually achieving anything that you thought was going to be impossible for yourself. It was, you need to stay at it a long time. And to stay at it a long time, you need a support system. And the more you have other talented people around you supporting you, the more likely you're going to make it, right? So like, I didn't become a very successful writer on my own. I created a community, talented people supported me. I didn't quit. And if you keep writing enough sentences like a monkey typing on a typewriter, one day you turn out you're good. But it's all about lasting 10 years at it to do it. When I walked into IndieBio, I wasn't good at the job. Right? I didn't come in with a lot. They just learn fast with talented people around you. And that's the same for your startups. A lot of the startups, even the great GRIDX startups we founded, they're doing something slightly different than something they had never discovered, didn't know was in their business plan from when you first funded them and we first funded them. It's that constant evolution, and that's because you have good, determined founders and you have a lot of great ideation going on continuously around you. You should look extremely highly and really closely at like the quality of your brainstorming with each other and the quality of your conversations with investors, even small investors. And if that really has that, one of the founders here was just talking about a cycle, right? It was an in-house cycle between one scientist and another scientist, and back and forth they were describing, right? But like that quality of interaction is the genius itself that creates value.
Thank you. So it's about community. So we've been pushing in the last 10 years from 0 to 1.
Yeah.
And now all of us have to push from 1 to 100. So
yeah.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you, Mati.
Thank you.